We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends, your priest, your dog. Share it all over the place. Welcome into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue. Don't be scared. Come on in. Live show. We have a stacked show tonight. We were all ready to go, and then a bomb hit. About 3 hours ago, John Wilner released an article describing a wrongful termination complaint by the two executives that were fired about in January. You remember that story? Well, we're going to have to hit that and hit that hard tonight. I've been reaching out to some people after reading that story. Now, this story just broke. And I don't think there may be people in the chat who haven't even heard this. Haven't even heard this story. So we're going to go through the article. And I hope there's a lawyer or two that drops into the chat and explains something to me. I've got questions. So I'm going to be asking the chat and the PATC community what your thoughts are. I don't know if these wrongful termination lawsuit that's happening, per the lawyer's statement, I don't think it's just limited to Larry Scott and to the Pac-12. My question is George Kliavkoff, is he part of this as well? Has he been implicated in this? I don't know. This story just broke, and that's where we're going to hit hard tonight, at least at the beginning. Then we're going to go through Jim Williams' statements about the Apple TV, wanting's the word. Wanting the entire Tier 1 package. I've got some very strong comments about that. It's probably, most possibly true that they want it. But talking about implications, if that were to happen, or if that is the perception of some Pac-12 presidents thinking that's going to happen down the road, we've got so much to get to. Let's first get to our sponsors for tonight's show. The Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters Difference. The Clean Hot Air Roasted Coffee produces a smoother, a richer, healthier coffee that is less bitter and less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for a very even heat transfer. The clean, bright taste that people rave about is achieved by roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air. From craft to cup, hand-picked coffee beans, the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters, the best coffee that myself and the Little General have ever had. So give it a try. There's a link provided in the description. And if you hit that link, and if you decide you want to try this great, incredible, elite coffee, if you want to support the channel, put PATC in the comment section below the video. We would appreciate it so very much. And of course, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to this channel. If you love college football, we cover it all. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing the Minnesota Golden Gophers spring football game. Last weekend, we did the Buckeyes. A couple weeks before that, we did the Wolverines. We're going to try to do the Colorado, some of it tomorrow. I don't know about that, but we're going to be doing the Gophers game 12 noon Eastern time, 11 o'clock in the morning Central time. So join us for that. Also, if you got the time, go check out our merch store. There's a link provided in the description box. And again, as you all know, once you're in the chat room, cloak and dagger, follow the rules. Okay, so first of all, I want to welcome in everybody that's come on early. Randy Taylor, Gary, Immaculate, K2, Jay, Pure Mutter, thanks for coming in. Jared Jones, Mr. Buckeye, Tu Masta, Lou, John Menser, Duwaga Hagen, Curtis Brown, thanks for coming on in. Son of Sarek makes another appearance. Luis Carlos Diaz, Mr. Aztec, Cougar Tail, Mona Vision, another Mr. Buckeye, Daniel Kopcha, thanks for coming in. Mr. Mr. Monkey says he's also in the house, and a lot of other people are coming on in. Okay, let's get to the story here. I know a lot of people haven't read this, haven't seen it, haven't heard about it. So we're going to be going through it. And I got some questions. I have got some questions. I don't have any answers. So I have questions for the PATC community. And if there's any lawyers that can come join us, explain this to me. We're going to be opening up the phone lines. They're not open right now. I'll let you know when they're open. When they do open up, the number is 763-260-1333 because I've got questions. Here we go. Breaking news from John Wilner, the Mercury News. Pac-12 legal affairs. Fired executives file complaint, claim Larry Scott knew about the Comcast overpayments. The Pac-12 could be on the hook for $50 million in excessive payments. Now hang with me here. Hang with me. Because it seems like this story is just about Larry Scott. But is there something more to the story? Again, I've reached out to some people and we're all looking at it, right? And we don't know the whole story, of course. But other people share my suspicions on this story. It's a little unclear where all this is heading. But let's get to it. Former Pac-12 executives Mark Shucken and Brent Willman have filed a wrongful termination complaint against the conference following their dismissals for their roles in the Comcast overpayment scandal. Remember that in January? I believe it was January. Yes, January 20th. When basically the number 2, the number 3 person in the Pac-12 conference were fired, let go, dismissed. Okay, back to the article. Shucken, the former president of the Pac-12 networks, and Willman, the Pac-12's former CFO, were terminated on January 20th for failing to properly report millions of dollars in overpayments made by Comcast to the Pac-12 networks. Okay, we know that story a few months ago. But the complaint alleges they did. The complaint that Willman and Shucken, who were dismissed, they're filing a wrongful termination complaint. But the complaint alleges they did, in fact, properly report the issue. They repeatedly told then Commissioner Larry Scott about the situation after it was discovered in December 2017. And Scott told them not to say or do anything. Okay? So hang with me, guys and gals. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, this is just a wrongful termination complaint lawsuit against Larry Scott, who was the former Pac-12 commissioner. Just hang with me here. The overpayments continued for years and are believed to have totaled $5 million annually over the course of a decade before Comcast discovered them in 2022. They have left the Pac-12 schools at a significant financial risk, with Comcast expected to withhold approximately $50 million in revenue distributions to the networks, or $4.2 million per school, until the expiration of its contract in the summer of 2024. Filed in San Francisco Superior Court this week and obtained by the hotline, the document calls the twin terminations of Shucken and Willman in a case of scapegoating and the cover-up of retaliation. It seeks injunction relief, claiming the statement published on the Pac-12 website that announced the terminations of unnamed executive have caused irreparable harm to their reputations, damages on the amounts to be established at trial and believed to be in excess of $2 million, according to the complaint. Now, I have seen a few comments out there in social media saying, okay, this is a lawsuit for $2 million. Not a big deal. A non-story. Well, first of all, it's to believe to be in excess of $2 million. We have no idea how much they're claiming here in damage and irreparable harm to the reputations. It's excess of $2 million. So let's not take the $2 million just for granted. It's excess of $2 million. Asked to comment, the Pac-12 issued the following statement to Hotline. The claims being alleged are woefully without merit, and the Pac-12 intends to vigorously defend against such false claims. So that's the Pac-12 statement. At the center of the complaint of these two executives who believe they were wrongfully dismissed, at the center of the complaint is an argument for wrongful termination. The executives were dismissed for a failure to disclose material information to the Pac-12 Board of Directors and external Pac-12 auditors in connection with the overpayments by a Pac-12 network's distribution partner, according to a statement by the conference on January 20th. So this is the Pac-12 conference saying, you two are dismissed because you failed to disclose the material information to the Pac-12 Board of Directors, Pac-12 auditors. However, now this complaint by Shutkin and Willman say, the complaint states that Shutkin and Willman repeatedly told Scott, who served as both commissioner and chief executive of the Pac-12 network. So they told him repeatedly. Now this is where it gets interesting. From late 2017 and well into 2018, plaintiffs Shutkin and Willman repeatedly and separately told Commissioner Scott about the audit, appropriately deferring to him about how to proceed. Commissioner Scott told them that the Comcast audit findings were preposterous, and they each were specifically instructed by Commissioner Scott not to say or do anything about the Comcast audit. When Willman disclosed the audit, Commissioner Scott responded, "No way." Commissioner Scott told Shutkin in response to the audits, "It's crazy. Ignore it." Scott did not respond to a request for comment. The complaint also attempts to undermine the credibility of the investigation conducted last fall on behalf of the Pac-12. Now, I would consider this, I would say, this is probably one of the three money shots coming in here late in this article. The complaint also attempts to undermine the credibility of the investigation conducted last fall on the behalf of the Pac-12 by the Palo Alto-based firm Cooley LLP. It states that the lead attorney, Michael Sheets, has been Scott's personal attorney. The Pac-12 has retained Cooley LLP for legal work for years. So according to this complaint, I don't know if they've got this evidence or not, but according to this complaint, the investigation was conducted by Palo Alto-based firm Cooley LLP. The lead attorney on this investigation, Michael Sheets, had been previously Larry Scott's personal attorney. That's a conflict of interest. Back to the article. The complaint does not mention the existence of any documentation, no emails, no text messages, no memos or notes that prove Shutkin and Willman told Scott of the overpayments, suggesting all exchanges about the issue were verbal. And if it is just verbal, then Shutkin and Willman, they have a higher hurdle to overcome on this. Okay, but this next part is the second money shot of the article, because this can be proven either yes or no by Shutkin and Willman. The complaint states, Shutkin, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, Shutkin and Willman were contractually prohibited from going over Scott's head and reporting the overpayments to the Pac-12 Board of Directors. So was it in the contract that they couldn't go over the heads of Larry Scott Larry Scott was wearing a couple different hats at the time. If that can be proven, then maybe they have a case. Back to the article. Current Commissioner George Kliavkoff is mentioned a few times in the 32-page document, with each reference citing an exchange with Willman in mid-January. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Now, this is a 32-page document that John Wilden, Mercury News, got. This was filed this week. I believe it said San Francisco. It was filed this week. Wilden gets his hand on it. It's 32 pages. So this is just the start of the story. And so current Commissioner George Kliavkoff is mentioned a few times in this 32-page document. And here's the third and possibly the biggest money shot through all of this. Willman, as CFO, had prepared a financial forecast for the Pac-12 presidents in advance of a board meeting on January 30th. The slide deck included details of the 2017 audit that initially exposed the overpayments. According to the complaint, Kliavkoff expressly directed Mr. Willman to remove all mentions of the 2017 audit from the board deck to shield any mention of it from the board. So, what does that mean? Did George Kliavkoff also try to hide this 2017 audit? This is the audit that Willman and Schuckman first saw that they were an issue. They told Larry Scott many times. Of course, we don't know if there's any any documents, any evidence pertaining to their communication with Larry Scott. But according to Willman, the slide deck, what they were going to show the board, the CEO board, the Pac-12 presidents, Kliavkoff expressly directed Mr. Willman to remove all the mentions of the 2017 audit. So, this story just broke 3 hours ago. So it's sort of like the fog of war. We really don't know, right? In accordance to John Wilner's early reporting on this, it doesn't seem to be any documentation, or maybe it's just not in the 32-page complaint, about how Willman and Schuckman both say that they told Larry Scott many, many times over that we have a problem. And according to Willman and Schuckman, contractually, they couldn't go beyond Larry Scott to tell anybody else. That was in their contracts. Can they prove any of that? We don't know, but they're wrongful. They're putting out a wrongful termination complaint, lawsuit. And what does that mean at the end there with George Kliavkoff? Did Kliavkoff try to hide it right there at the last moment? In accordance to the article, the board had already known 3 days prior, that there was an audit issue, that there was an issue. And one last thing, and then we're going to get to Jim Williams' Apple TV report, and then we're going to get to your comments and phone calls. One other thing, here's the real issue on this. For when it comes to the current situation of the Pac-12. Damages of excess of $2 million, let's say it's $3 million, let's say it's $4 million. Not a really big deal. Right? Pac-12's, the schools are 50, they have to have, they're going to have their Comcast is going to withhold $4.2 million for every school when it comes to payments to pay up for that $50 million. Another $4 million on top of that total, $3 million. That's not going to really do anything. But what if, like when this happened on January 30th, when it was announced that that these two executives were dismissed, I came up on the show and I said, good work, George Kliavkoff. Good work. Good work. I've been criticizing him for months before that, but he acted quickly. This is a Larry Scott problem. But what if George Kliavkoff did not act in the rightful manner in this situation? I'm just putting that out there. What if what if in their contracts it clearly states that they were only to report to Larry Scott when it comes to any of these issues? Because Larry Scott had a couple of different hats on. What if it clearly states that in the contract? Because if it does, and if Schuckman and Willman have any evidence that they constantly were telling Larry Scott that we've got a problem here with Comcast, overbilling, overpayment. You know, Larry Scott hasn't made any comments in public. Doesn't seem to be wanting to take any interviews with this. So what if they were wrongfully dismissed? Does that add to the distrust of the Pac-12 leadership? Kind of unorganized leadership? Does it or does it not? Is it a big nothing burger when it comes to George Kliavkoff? Is this still all about Larry Scott? I don't know. I think it's too early to tell, but I'm interested to hear your comments and your phone calls and a couple lawyers giving me a call. But before we do so, Jim Williams, we talked about this in an episode. The only thing that I can confirm this morning regarding the Pac-12 media deal is Apple TV Plus wants the entire Tier 1 package and would use Pac-12 Network as their production arm. Prime Video is still there for a Friday night game. The linear partner remains the holdup. But Apple TV having all of the Tier 1 games, and I've said here at Peek Around the Corner, when people have brought up, when people have reported the possibility of there being the CW or ION or US Network having some of that Tier 1 network, Tier 1 content on the linear network, I've said, okay, may not work, it may work, but for me, those are better options than Apple TV having all of the Tier 1 content. I said that over and over and over again. And here we are with the report that Apple TV, they still want that entire Tier 1 package. Don't know if they're going to get it. But what if they want it? And what if they get it? What if that's the best deal George Kliavkoff can get? Would all the Pac-10 presidents sign on the dotted line for streaming Tier 1 content? Because if you ask, for me, I think it's quite apparent. And you can disagree with me if you want. Put in the comments, give me a call. But I don't think Apple TV would be selling any. I don't think they would sublicense any of that Tier 1 Pac-12 content. If they're going in that way, if they're going to overpay just to get into the college sports space, to make sure they get the Tier 1 top Pac-12 content, they're doing it to gain subscribers. And to sublicense that content out to a linear partner, I just don't see it happening, ladies and gentlemen. I don't see it happening. So is this, I've reported this before. Take it how you want. I do not believe that all the Pac-12 presidents are going to agree with the package. I don't think all of them are going to sign on Apple TV being the holder, the licensor, the person who holds the distribution rights of all the Tier 1 Pac-12 content going to Apple TV. I don't think they'll sign it. Jim Williams then said, anything can still happen, but I think something as soon as the first week in May. This tweet is not meant to say that the Pac-12 is done or that the Big 12 Conference will start adding new members. It's just a status report as of 8:30 a.m. Friday. So Jim's saying something could happen that first week of May. Of course, you all know we believe that. We believe that wholeheartedly here at Peek Around the Corner. And I want to explain this before we get to the comments. I want one more chance to explain this. It is our strongly held opinion, based upon information that's coming from more than one direction, that not all the Pac-12 schools are completely committed to actually seeing the final details of an offer that George Kliavkoff is going to present them. For them to make a decision, are we going to stay in the Pac-12 or are we going to go? Are we going to go to the Big 12? And let me explain why one more time. Because according to the Arizona State Money Purge, we did a live show on it, episode on it, and according to other information that we're connecting the dots on, you can tell me I'm absolutely wrong in the comments or give me a phone call, but it does seem to us that some schools are getting themselves together, seeing if they can get institutional support to give them the option to pull the trigger, because they don't know the final details of a media package a month or 2 months from now, but they do know that it's going to be subpar, that it's going to be an unsustainable media package. Now, the Arizona State Money Perch in that latest letter said the word, this is unsustainable, an unsustainable media package, media deal. They know that's what they're going to get. And I got asked a lot of questions in the comments section. I read them all, saying, what does it mean when he said unsustainable? Does that mean that the media deal would make it so Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado couldn't even have an athletic department that was functional? I waited to answer that question because I wanted to make sure what that meant. We got the answer back. I'm going to let you know right now what that meant when the Arizona State Money Perch kept saying, we know we're going to get an unsustainable media deal. What he meant by that is unsustainable, we lose, and he sort of mentioned this in the letter, we lose even more ground to the Big 12 in the next 5 years. Forget about the other Power 5 conferences. This is we are going to receive an unsustainable media deal. We know that. We don't know the details. We don't know if we'll get a little bit more money because it's more streaming or a lot less money because we have it on linear network where ESPN, Fox, and other people are lowballing us. We don't know which way it's going to go, but however it goes, we know enough at this point. At this point in time, it's going to be an unsustainable deal. We're going to lose more and more, little bit by little bit, more ground to the Big 12. And then 5 years from now, we're going to be sitting at even lower ratings, lower money, more debt, more fracture. That's what he means by that. So, to bring it all together, they know, they don't know the deal, but they know the status of the deal, how it's going to be subpar. And if they don't need, according to this Arizona State Money Perch and other information we receive, they do not need another 3 months to figure that out. Either they're okay with it, either taking that subpar deal, that unsustainable, knowing that they're going to take it 2 or 3 months down the line because they do not want to go to the Big 12 at this time. They'd rather wait 5 years. They can make that decision here in the next couple weeks. Or they can make the other decision to say, no, we can't afford 5 years of falling more and more behind, not knowing if we're going to get what our future is if we wait too long, not knowing if someone's going to cut in line. Some other school is going to take our spot with the Big 12, not knowing if the media market recession is going to get worse in a couple months. This decision, according to what we're being told, does not need to wait to hear the final details. Not from all the Pac-12 presidents, all the Pac-12 universities, not all of them. Maybe there's only 3 of them or 2 of them that don't need to see it. Not all of them need to see it. That's why we have professed to you all that we're getting into that bubble, into that spot. We depicted it we said about April 28th to May 17th. We're getting into that spot where if these schools are really are determined, are completely dissatisfied, are worried about George Kliavkoff, knowing that they're going to get an unsustainable media deal that's going to 5 years down the road, they're going to be worse off. If all that comes together and they have institutional support to actually make the move, then we're looking at the first 2 weeks in May, something could pop. That's the opening. That's the time where the story starts to ripen, according to what we're being told. So I would be shocked. I'd be surprised if something happened. What's the date today? The 21st, if something would happen on Monday or next Tuesday. So that's what I want to make it clear. Let's get to your comments. Let's get to your phone calls. Holy smokes, I'm way behind. What do you think about John Wilner's article? Woo! Man, I tell you. West Virginia guy says, I see Colorado leaving the Pac-12 near in the next few weeks. Dawaga Hagen says, yeah, the story seems weird. Immaculate. These guys are going to have some serious lawyer firepower working for them. Immaculate. This is the Pac-12 network that Apple Plus would need to manage the production of the Pac-12 football content for them. That's true. Pac-12 network, Apple, they're only a few miles apart from each other. In that sense, it would work. Is all the Pac-12 presidents, the 10 presidents, are they all willing to sign on Apple TV to have the top content each and every week? Man, someone's going to have to convince me. Somebody's going to have to convince me. K-Do, man, can the Pac actually get some good news out? Well, this is a negative story that dropped on Friday. If you want negative stories to drop, Friday is the day you want to drop them. You really don't see anybody talking about the story. Go on social media, but we're going to talk about it tonight. Mona Vision, it doesn't matter what they told Larry Scott. If they didn't notify Kliavkoff in the last 2.5 years, that is enough to terminate. Faceless Man 276, no CYA emails? Suspicious. Now, there might be emails. There might be some documentation. It wasn't in the 32-page report complaint that came out today. So I don't think we even really know that. Now, if it comes out to be true that there is no communication on email or anything else that you can document, then yeah, they have a pretty high hurdle to come. But Monovision says it's hearsay. It could be, but we don't know. We do not know. Coos Corner, the great YouTube channel, West Virginia Mountaineer, any team that stays in the PAC and doesn't have to, is insane. Tumasta, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. And again, at the end of that John Wilner article, what was Kliavkoff doing getting that slide out of the slide deck? If that's true. If it's true. Coos Corner, it's a sinking ship. Good evening, Greg. Good evening, Buckshot Kid. Thanks for coming on in. Opie, just when you thought it could not get any crazier, it does. Rebecca brings up an interesting comment. Anyone want to guess what the Colorado Board of Regents was about on Monday? I don't need to guess now. And again, University of Arizona had a public open mic audience this morning. We had a person there, peek around the corner. We have not heard back yet. It's been a busy day. Again, this information doesn't come directly to me. It goes through a couple people. It will get to me, and I will report as soon as I can. If there was anything that was mentioned about realignment in the public open session that happened at 8:35 Pacific Coast time at the University of Arizona. So I'll get to that. In fact, if I get it tonight during the show, I'll kick it out to y'all. People are saying Rebecca might be right. That could have been what the private board meeting was about. Tumasta, watch Colorado. Coos Corner says the financial impact may not be that bad, but the continuous public relations nightmare isn't good for the PAC. And again, it's about the trust. If George Kliavkoff did something wrong here, and if people are being suspicious about it, PAC-12 presidents, look, I lived it. There was so much distrust among Big Ten leadership and the boosters, the biggest money perch. There was so much distrust on Kevin Warren when USC called the Big Ten. I mean, I'm not going to go through that story again tonight, but that is the biggest reason why we were even given the story. So when there's distrust of a commissioner, and that distrust first started through the pandemic, Kevin Warren, how he handled the pandemic. When there's a distrust of the commission, I'm just saying, if there's some real legs to this, this implicates George Kliavkoff in any way. The last part of that article is it's not clear. I'm not saying that George Kliavkoff is implicated in any way, but how that was written, kind of suspicious, and other people are suspicious, and we're going to try to figure it out. But if George Kliavkoff is seen as trying to hide something or might have went too quick on those dismissals because maybe those two gentlemen were whatever. Maybe they told you George Kliavkoff the same issue. They had that in the slide deck. They had the two set According to those two gentlemen, they had it in the slide deck. They were ready to show everybody once again 2017, the audit issue, according to the complaint. I don't know if it's true or not. But if he's implicated anyway, anyhow, that's just going to build on the distrust. Because there is some distrust with Kliavkoff. Of course there is. There has to be. He declared how many millions they thought they were going to get. We heard from my own Arizona State money perch on January 31st of what happened in that January 30th meeting. And then a couple weeks later, Ray Anderson, the athletic director, confirmed basically what our guy told us, what we reported to you all, that there was frustration. George Kliavkoff going out and saying UCLA would actually make less money if they joined the Big Ten. We all knew that was just ridiculous, but he said it anyways, and George Kliavkoff doubled down. I'm trying to say that it's like what Coos Corny said. The financial impact, not much. The trust impact of George Kliavkoff, man, anyways, allegedly. I don't know. I'm just bringing that up because, and I'm not the only person bringing it up. Just to let you know, we don't know what that last part of what that article meant. And we're going to be going through it again tonight, what that last part was. Okay. All right, let's get to the phone calls. Okay, we've had enough of listening to me. I don't know the answers. I just have questions. If we have a lawyer in the house, that would be excellent. The phone calls, the phone line is open, 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Please give us a call. Please give us a call right now. It is open. Okay. Opie is thinking maybe May 1st, the Day of Atonement for Colorado. Allegedly, Greg. Yes, allegedly. Allegedly. Greg, there is a mountain load of mistrust in the Big Ten. We have not trusted this conference the minute we joined. The fact is we trust the Big Ten more than we did dealing with Texas. Well, hopefully the new commissioner, Petiti, can gain trust with the Big 12 Big Ten presidents. Hopefully that happens. Just you need to communicate. You need to build consensus. Kevin Warren was a terrible communicator. Not just outside the house, but inside the house. Joe Z says Apple TV should just make a reality show of the daily inner workings of the Pac-10 offices and have Steve Carell play George Kliavkoff. Dave Patrick, they have emails and many other documents, plus others in the PAC knew about it. Again, I don't know. Of course I don't know. They must think they have something. The one part of it when they said they were contractually, they could not go beyond Larry Scott. They had to only give him the information. Was that in there? That's easily provable if it's true or if it's false. Either way.
Call from
Dale Donuts.
Dale Donuts, what's going on, sir? The floor is yours.
How you doing, Greg? No one's calling in, so I'll call in and say hi. How you doing?
Good.
I was gonna comment on that very thing, except the Steve Carell thing for him playing George Kliavkoff, but we could have a reality show of just having or call it a fly on the wall at the daily dose of the Pac-12 watching. Maybe we'll have that. No, I just want to follow up real quick on my comment. Leaving the Big 12 and going to the Big 10, 13, 14 years ago, it was, it was hard, and, to some of us, it still is sometimes a little hard. Like, we do miss some of the old rivalries, things like that.
Yeah.
But then again, we get, we listen to, we see some of the fans, and we interact with some of the, teams, and some of the little schools like, Purdue and Rutgers, and seems like, they all tell us what we have to do. It seems that we're like, hey, wait a minute, we're a Big Red.
Yeah.
We're not used to this, but at the same time, we know we're trying to play a part and do better. But I don't know. Maybe there's just something's missing. It seems like in college football. I mean, lately too. In sports in general, I mean, look at how money is ruining a lot of things. If you look at everything, and I think money is just getting tighter and tighter across the board. It doesn't matter who you like anymore. It's who you're going to get paid from now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm looking at, like what happened the other day. I'm looking at my baseball team, the Oakland Athletics. They're moving to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
That's
sad.
It's unbelievable watching everything change. I mean, it has nothing to do with fan bases or anything like that. It's all about the money, media, dollars. That's about it. It's all about dollars. And this is going to ruin the game of football. I mean, we saw Ohio State, was it Oregon we saw?
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that. And how much more are we going to see? And then we're going to have to bow down to, the almighty dollar, because that's what we're supposed to do, even though we're not getting the teams we want to play. We're not getting the people we want to be around. We're not getting the right alignments with everything. And, I get there's academics and things like that with the colleges and those schools, but at the same time, you're going to have money draw lines and all that. I'm looking at some things like I never would have thought I've seen the day where Bedlam is no longer important anymore. I mean,
that's going to hurt. That's really going to hurt. That's really going to hurt Oklahoma State. Yeah.
Well, when we were in the Big 12, that was one of the ones we would watch, because it was not just one of those. It wasn't just one of those little games. It was a big one watching, and I miss. We're having stuff like that ruined. I mean, but then again, the almighty dollar is going to do it. Watch what's going to happen in the Northwest. I mean, if our conference does come calling, the Big 10 come for Oregon and Washington. I mean, Oregon's not going to give a lick about Oregon State having that rivalry game.
No.
It's going to be quite a bit different. I mean, and watch also Arizona. Arizona's not going to care about playing Arizona State.
Yeah, consolidation hasn't stopped. It isn't going to stop, at least for a while. We don't know what it's going to look like 20 years from now. Maybe for whatever reason, some economic forces make it so these big super conferences start breaking up. But yeah, right now the consolidation part is not over with. But you bring up the Oakland A's. I grew up watching the mid 73, 74, 75 A's. 3-time.
Oh, the swinging.
Huh?
The swinging A's.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson, Joe Rudy. They had Vita Blue on the mound, Raleigh Fingers coming in the bullpen. I mean,
mustache game.
Huh?
The mustache game.
Yes. It was. I grew up on those Oakland A's and my Minnesota Twins, of course. But yeah, it's sad. And more change is coming.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more, and it's not just going to be college sports, but I'm wondering if there's going to be a third party entity to come in and like someone in Congress is like, okay, we're going to rein this in. NCAA, you failed. We're reining this in. We need to control this somehow. I don't know what's going to happen, but Oakland is. I'm going to miss going to some of those games. I mean, I grew up going to them when I lived in Northern California with my dad. I followed my father around. He worked for the federal government and then the state of California. We followed him around the Western U.S. and so I went to a lot of those games. I grew up there doing that, but so I had those memories. But it's like those memories are being taken away, and it's not much different. It's not much different with everything else happening. Even in college football, the same thing. Rivalries being taken away. So are some of the memories that are going to just be gone. Yeah, you're going to make new ones, but are you going to be as happy? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. My rant is over.
Nebraska's getting some. They're building some big rivalries in the Big Ten, though. I mean, it's almost there, right? Don't you think?
Depending on who you are, it's weird. Like the Illinois people treat us like we're some kind of brand new to this, and they think they need to hold our hand or something. And I'm like, wait, how many titles you guys got?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, but fan bases are gonna be like that. They can be bitter and whining, and sometimes it's like I'm just like a fly on the wall right now. You don't see too many, Pac-12 teams or Pac-12 school bases getting as involved as those guys from Utah. I don't know what has flown up their nose, but man, they're bitter about something. I don't know what their deal is.
They're a passionate fan base, which is good, right?
Yeah, but they're acting like they're going to the NFL or something. I don't know. But anyway,
well, they're the two-time defending Pac-12 champs, so they get some room to puff out their chest and.
I don't know. They haven't beaten us yet, so.
Huh?
They haven't beat us yet, so.
Wow. Okay.
Stuff their chest and butt whipping is what they've done. But anyway, I don't know. I think the media is controlling a lot of stuff. I'm having a hard time with, okay, I'm gonna have to, I'll fly out to Vegas. I'll watch my A's play there. We'll see what happens, and I'm predicting that we'll probably be having to make road trips down to Tallahassee in the next few years. Who knows?
Could be
what's going to happen.
Could be.
It could be coming, but at the same time, do we belong to be? Are we supposed to be doing that? Is the question, and we're doing that because the media wants us to do it. But do we want to be? And I have no answer for that. I mean, I would love to have Oregon in the conference. Sure, that'd be great. But do we want them at the expense of Oregon State being hurt by it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's always the question. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway.
Great call.
I just wanted to say hi, thanks, and I'll see you I may call back next week when I get back from Orlando.
Got it. Thanks. Great call. Thank you so much.
from
Modified Bread and Streaming Circus.
There we go. Western Civic is in the house.
Yeah, you caught me.
What's going on, sir?
Well, there you are. As far as notifications, you go live, and there you are. So,
Yeah,
look,
we don't waste any time.
I want to change it up. We've been over this who's going where stuff for a minute. I mean, look, nothing's happening until we hear from the Big Ten again. We know that the Big Ten has, made themselves clear during the Warren regime or the Warren administration, but we would certainly appreciate it. And I'm certain, probably the big presidents are all talking to the PAC presidents, and they're making whatever's happening. I don't think there are any secrets at this point. I really don't.
Yeah.
As far as any big expansion, which is, again, I'm over 50% chance that the Big makes a move this year now, because the PAC expansion talk that I was hearing weeks ago has just like gone away. Now, I don't know why. That could be it's done. It could be they just want to get the media thing done and not detract from the schools. Anyway, I didn't want to talk about this that long, but look, nothing happens till nobody moves till the Big moves, and if the Big doesn't move, the PAC's going to be there, and no one's going to the Big Ten. The Big 12. No one's going to the Big 12 unless the Big moves, and that's just what we're waiting for. But I want to talk about. Look, I try and limit my sports intake, my bread and circus, to college football and Major League Baseball. This Petiti guy wasn't behind this pitch clock, was he? I mean, what an abomination! I mean, the only person who wants a clock at the baseball game is your boss. Okay, that's to go to some place and not have a sport that didn't have a clock. The oligarchs. Yeah. This is what I want to get into a little bit here. I resent that we're all sort of sitting here trying to read the tea leaves of our oligarchs' plan for us in our sporting entertainment. Am I right, Greg?
What? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I hear you.
I mean, we're all just sitting here trying to. I mean, look. Someone has a plan, and they're really going to get it done because they have all the power. This Petiti guy really looks like he comes from that group, wherever he comes from, and to the point where his power may sort of almost, be a challenge or supersede that of these amazing university presidents. I mean, that's the sense I get. This is a powerful dude. He's coming with all the juice behind him. So whatever this guy's going to do, he's going to do, and we're all sitting here trying to read the tea leaves for our bread and circus, but this is what I want to talk about. And thanks for your patience here on a Friday afternoon.
No problem.
Greg, but it's important. It's important, I think.
Yes, it is.
This sport, it's important to us, this sport. And it's important to the oligarchs, too, because they know we love it, and it keeps us focused on things that are no threat to what's going on around us, and it really is a distraction. Yeah. And let me give you an example of where it comes to us right as sports fans. It's at the ballpark. Now, I don't know if some of you know, I went to law school, did a lot of goofy. I'm sort of a full-time revolutionary now. I won't get into it. We want to talk about sports, but the French Yellow Vests will be jumping off here in the early morning on every given Saturday and have been for 4 years. And those are our partners in forming this republic. I know people want to make fun of the French, but they actually copied the U.S. Constitution in 1789. But I digress. When you go to the ballpark now, they're saying that this, and I'm not a big fan of fiat currency and all the problems that come with it, but we do have this cash that says on there, legal tender for all debts, public and private. But if you want to go to a modern ballpark, and it's probably going to be true of every Pac-12 venue and every other major college football venue, if we don't get our act together real quick, if you notice, you can't go. And I've made a stink about doing that. We've got to be able to use cash, guys. I mean, what business is it of the front office who I'm sitting next to or what I buy for the night? And for that matter, when I go to the supermarket, they think my personal information's worth 50 cents off an ice cream cone. I mean, what the hell? And it's trickling down, it's like trickling down. onto our sports. And that's what I really want to talk about. And I want people to talk, because we're just sitting here waiting for Petiti or somebody in the Big Ten to say something. And until then, nothing's happening.
April 28th, Petiti's talking. Press
okay,
conference.
well, there you go. That's that, who was it? Mark over there at the Voice of. He was, what's the next? Well, the next thing to happen is whatever comes out of Petiti's mouth that anyone can hear.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the next thing to happen, I think. I mean, that won't be news to any of the people that matter. It'll just be news to us. And then if they're going to make moves or whatever moves are going to happen, it will appear more appropriate in the public eye, I would think. It's the first thing we're waiting for. But, guys, here's what you can do. Major League Baseball, you can still use cash, but you got to make a little bit of a stink. It's not hard, but if we all start doing it, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that went to a San Diego Padres game so far this season. They don't know who I was. Seriously.
I understand. Okay.
I had to go to the front office. I said, look, I got a piece of paper that says legal tender, all debts public and private. And I said, well, you got to put it in this machine, and then it'll give you a MasterCard. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. So I covered the machine that wants to take my picture while I'm doing that. So they can, I stick my, whatever, newspaper over that. Yeah. And then I get my little card, and I go around to the front, and I say, okay, I got this card, now give me some tickets. And they said, well, what's your name and what's your email? I said, none of your business. And they said, well, I can't do that, da-da-da, and then whatever. And they go and talk to the boss. Boss wants to at least know your name, and then I talk to the boss. Boss, I said, look, he says, well, if you lose this $28 paper ticket, I live in the cheap seats. It's beautiful. It's a nice thing. Anyway, and he says, well, I won't be able to refund if you lose. I said, we've been doing this for 100 years, taking paper tickets to the ball game. We don't need this nonsense. And if there's any place anybody ought to be able to go without your electronic leash, it ought to be the ballpark or the football game, right? I don't go to you can, if you want to, great. You need to do some text message, some emails while you're sitting at the ballpark. Okay, great. But maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's the place where you get some respite. Maybe you want to go somewhere where you aren't completely surrounded by, whatever radiation level, 50,000 cell phones in one place creates. I have no idea. But anyway, it's just, guys, let's not lose our humanity in this. Are we just going to go to robot wars? Because, we can go there. They got that. Stanford's real good at it. Are we going to do that, or are we going to maintain our humanity here a little bit? And so that's my little 2 cents today from Western Civic. If you want, I got it all in the comments if anybody wants to hear what I think about whatever. But I'm still taking all bets on Colorado to the Big Lubbock Conference. That is not happening. Greg, I love you to death. You've got Big Lubbock confirmation bias. What part of absolutely no truth, end quote, do you not understand? That's like, anyway, I love you guys to death, and let's keep this thing human, huh? And you know what? We're the ones that are spending all the money on this stuff.
You're right.
Maybe the fans ought to have a little more say in what's going on. And for God, I'll tell you what, if we don't do something, your kids, your grandkids are going to need a barcode on their forehead to go to the ball game. You think I'm kidding? No war. Love you to death.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Great call.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas is in the house. The floor is yours, sir.
Hello, Greg. Happy Friday to you. That was thank you, Western Civic, for the entertainment. That was great as always.
And by the way, to answer Western Civic's question, it is the networks, MLB's media partners that love the time clock, the pitch clock, because they want to know when there's a good chance that game will get over with. So they're the ones who absolutely love it. In fact, when we talk about rule changes in college football going into this year, the clock is going to be running on first downs, with the exception of the last 2 minutes in the first half, the last 2 minutes in the second half. And there's a lot of reasons for it. They want less plays, less injury, blah, blah, blah. But one of the major components is these networks they don't want a game to go over 3.5 hours anymore. They want to get it around 3 hours, 3 hours and 10 minutes, because they want some control over their advertisers. They want to be able to get the next game in. They want new viewership for the next game. Anyways, I just had to get that in. Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours, sir. Thanks for calling.
Well, I think you're right. And to be quite honest, as a fan, I hate trying to go to my game and turn it on to have the last 10 minutes of some other game that's going on, and then having to go find it somewhere else on ESPN News or You or wherever it's, airing on. I mean, it's a bit annoying, and quite frankly, I do think the college game needs some aspect of speeding up now. I mean, there are some of those proposed rule changes that I don't agree with, but I think at least having the clock continue to run on first down, with the exception of the last 2 minutes of the half, I think that's a good change. Now, there are a couple other wacky things they have proposed that, that I'm not quite sure I, can get there on that, but, enough said there. So, we're going back to my my favorite pet topic here, Greg. We're going to talk a little bit about just sort of recognizing the reality for the PAC. I know a lot of PAC-12 fans are in their Berlin bunker right now, but it's pretty clear that the walls are caving in here, and I'll explain why. Essentially, the Pac-12, some schools in the Pac-12, ESPN's already negotiated its deal with some of the Pac-12. It's called the Big 12 Pro Rata Clause. I guarantee you that ESPN budgeted in to that Big 12 deal, at least for additions from the Pac-12, and Fox likely has a similar position but wants to sign off on those additions first. When it comes right down to it, based on Jim Williams' comments this morning, I just look, if Apple wants the Tier 1 rights, and I think people need to understand the definition between Tier 1 rights and Tier 2 rights in today's TV world, and especially when you add in streaming, has really become blurred. In essence, this is sort of like Apple's going to have to pick up what it wants to air, and everybody else is going to get whatever Apple doesn't want, which I don't see Apple, their drive is to get subscriptions, and the only way they'll get that is if they have good games and, content worth, worth people, signing up for it. And when you look at President Robbins' comments and things like that on the exposure, and you look at the other concerns, I've said this before, I don't think the Pac-12 can get the money it needs having ESPN as a partner, but it can't get the exposure it needs without it. And, if you stop and think about that, if you put your top games on ESPN, and ESPN is only offering so much money, well, Amazon or Apple or whoever else is not going to pay more for second, third picks than ESPN's paying for the first pick. That's just common sense in economics. And, these bids and the way they get negotiated, there's market intelligence. People know how much others are paying and what people are offering. That happens all the time. And, the whole thing is ESPN and Fox are effectively trimming the Pac deadweight out by refusing to budge. And, Fox has to decide if it wants to get, or if it can get, Oregon, Washington, the Big Ten. And I wanted to kind of point out something interesting on the Jim Williams comment earlier this morning when he said the PAC wants in all Apple wants in all Tier 1 rights.
Yeah.
And the thing that I struggle with is what is in it for Amazon at this point? Because the question is if you're not talking about a premier game, and you see what Patrick Craig says, and you look at usually ESPN Plus streaming numbers, and other things like that, you're talking about a potential audience of 500,000 to 750,000 viewers for that Friday night game. I don't see, and you're talking about a footprint that already has heavy Amazon Prime membership. I don't see how that benefits Amazon. If I'm Amazon, I approach the Big Ten and say, hey, I'll pay the freight for Washington and Oregon, and we'll work something out, and we'll take the majority of their content if we have to over the next 5 years, because they know that an Oregon-Washington game against a Big Ten team is going to get a lot more viewers than what they would get in that Friday night game with the PAC. And I mean, if you're looking at trying to get exposure to a broad base of audience to buy your products, click on your links, and get hooked in, I just don't see that a second tier, second pick, or third pick game in the Pac-12 giving Amazon really its money's worth, and Amazon's not going to pay a whole lot for that if they're not getting a significant marketing benefit from that. So I it takes me back to this whole approach that if you're all in with Apple, then you're not getting the exposure that you want. So at some point, I mean, I debate. I mean, I really struggle understanding whether or not the Pac-12 presidents are smart or whether or not they're stupid. I'm going to assume they're smart. I mean, I hope that they weren't expecting. I hope these comments about getting over 50% linear, or having a lot of linear content, I hope that that's posturing, because if they believe they were going to truly get that, then they really haven't been paying attention to what's going on. And I think they're smarter than that. So I'm going to go give them the benefit of the doubt. But I just think this thing is just, I don't see how any shape and form how you're going to get the exposure. And even at that, if there's no Amazon in the mix and the ESPN's at a certain level, the Pac-12 does not have a lot of leverage with Apple either. Apple can sublease those games, but if I'm in Apple's position, the only games you're going to be able to sublicense are probably top 10 matchups. And if I'm Apple, I keep all the profit to that. I don't give that to the Pac-12. And if I sublicense a game I lose money on, I make them eat the loss. I mean, the Pac-12 is not in the position to make any business demands. And that's the reality of it. And when it comes right down to it, I think these presidents see that, and they know that. And when the Pac-12 rejected ESPN's offer in August, it picked a two-front war with Fox and ESPN, and they're not going to win it. And it's either just a total lack of competence or a lack of understanding of their value. But I have a hard time believing that there's something magical up their sleeves, because the argument you would hear from Wilner and Canzano is, well, they're just being super close to the vest and, disciplined in their messaging. Well, it doesn't sound to me like a conference is very disciplined in its messaging when you have 4 or 5 different presidents going out there running their mouths saying 4 or 5 different things. And I think at this point, it's pretty obvious to me that, it's either they get the buy-in that I was talking about, that the political buy-in they need to move, or they just have to accept a really crummy deal from Apple, and it's going to only get worse. But at some point, I would not be surprised if our Oregon and Washington are working on the side with Amazon to try to get some way to get a crack at the Big Ten again, and have them pay the freight, and maybe have Oregon and Washington bear the brunt of the games, in the first, during the next 5 or 6 years, just for the sake of to assuage any concerns that Minnesota or Purdue or Indiana might have, because at this point, I don't see where it's in any interest of Amazon. I just don't think Amazon and Apple can coexist in the same deal. I just don't see it. And I don't see, it doesn't seem like there's a linear partner out there, and they need the ESPN exposure for their biggest games. The ESPN's not budging on the price, so it's kind of a rock and a hard place, Craig.
Yeah.
And at that point, this is, let's be honest. I mean, this is, they're surrounded, they're under siege, and they're in a bunker. And, there's two things that they could have done. When you're defeated, you either surrender or you fall back and look for a way to regroup and, bide your time. But that option passed when they decided to, engage in their version of the Battle of the Bulge in December against UCLA with UC Regents. So, I mean, that was a tremendous waste of time and burned a lot of bridges. And actually, based on the antics of, the comments of Cal's UC Regents, it seems to me like that actually did a lot to undermine the conference as a whole. So, it's crazy, but those are my comments tonight, Greg.
Got it.
See, but go ahead, sir.
Nope, I'm just thanking you for the phone call. Appreciate it.
All right, have a great night, Greg.
Yep, thanks. Okay, just want to get to a couple comments here. Then I'll open up the phone lines again. Got some comments on where was Dennis Dodd's Friday article for today. On Wednesday, Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, did tease that he was going to come out with an article today on Friday. And he teased on Wednesday that a couple of the subjects in that article on Friday was going to be a secondary plan for Big 12 expansion that Yormark has. If you can't get into the Pac-12 schools, what are his secondary plans? He was going to provide a list on that. Also on that Wednesday interview where he teased the Friday article, he said that he's, basically he was saying, I could see this taken for months, that everybody he talks to in the Pac-12 says they want to see the deal, the Pac-12 media deal, before they make a decision to go to the Big 12. And of course, our take at Peek Around the Corner is just a little bit different on that. But Dennis Dodd talked about that and a few other things, and he did not release that article today. I have no idea why he hasn't released it. Maybe something shifted. That happens. Or, he did release an interesting article today on rule changes. So maybe he bumped it to Monday. Maybe he's waiting for a little bit more information. But great. I saw that comment in the comments section. Dennis Dodd did not release that much anticipated article on CBS Sports today. Second thing is, saw some comments on Fox and what they want. They don't want Big 12 expansion. They do want. I've seen people speculate. Dennis Dodd said it in the Wednesday interview. He said some people tell him that Pac-12 schools that are targeted by Yormark would get full share media money once they enter the conference, and some people have been telling Dennis Dodd that's not true. I saw in the comments section that the Monty Show says they're not sure. They don't think the Pac-12 schools would get a full share. I've seen some other. I have been told the opposite. I'm just going to leave it at that. That those Pac-12 schools that are being targeted by the Big 12 know that they're going to get that pro rata from ESPN and Fox, even though they're not contractually to do so, will fill in the gap, and they will come in as a full share in each one of those targeted schools. They know their Big 12 number, and they've known it for a while. We heard Arizona President Robbins say that in public. They know their number. They're waiting on the Pac-12 number. One last thing. I saw comments early in the show. Andy Staples made a comment with Nicole Auerbach and Wasserman, a comment on his YouTube channel. The reporters from The Athletic, they were talking about realignment, and he says something like, I'm paraphrasing it. They're talking about how difficult realignment is, and it is. We all know this. It's really fluid. We don't know. I mean, like we said, Peek Around the Corner, we give you our best. We have a very limited window. We have a very limited perch. Even in this Pac-12 saga, very limited. But the information we've given you, we think we've hit on it. But it's been limited. And they were talking about on the show how things are. Nicole Arbeck said something like, yeah, if someone says something definite's going to happen, she finds it hard to believe. And then Andy Staples said, except unless that Minnesota guy says it, he's the only guy I trust. I was inundated with videos and stuff all over my phone about that. I looked at it. I figured Andy Staples was actually sort of giving me a shot, not an endorsement. So I put out a tweet to him saying, thank you for the shot, or basically, I don't know if this is a shot or an endorsement at me, but either way, I thank you. And he responded saying, this was a full endorsement. So Andy Staples, thank you so much for being so kind to myself and this channel. I appreciate the shout out. And I also have to say thank you. There's been lots of people who've reached out to me for months. Real credible people that blow me away, that they would even call me or know who I am or communicate to me in any which way. And if you're watching, listening, of course I can't say, but thank you so very much for being so considerate to me and helping me out, giving me pointers along the way. So I appreciate it. So I just wanted to touch on that. I saw that comment early in the show. So thank you to Andy Staples. Let's get back to your comment. And phone calls. I open up the phone calls once again. The number is 763-260-1333. Rick Olson, please limit phone calls to 3 to 4 minutes. We might do that at some point. It might be a 5-minute. I'm going to work on putting up a clock up there. Yeah, please limit your phone calls. It's difficult. I can tell you that. It's difficult from both sides.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate. Brian is in the house. What's going on, sir? The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Greg. I tell you, I'm going to do something different. I'm just going to tell you the points that I'd like to talk about, and you tell me how much you want to talk about it, so that way if you want to limit this. Does that work?
Yeah.
The Apple Plus with the PAC network, very interesting. Got a couple of things just from living out here out west and seeing what the PAC network does. Consolidation and the value to the conferences and the networks both. Like just taking the same entity that we already have, and just by consolidating, you're creating more value. And then final is shout out to Nitwit in there. Talk a little bit about end game possibilities and where this all may be going for people that might be having a little bit of trepidation about that and where this is actually going to go. So those are the three things.
Okay, you want to answer? You want me to answer those three things?
Talk to you about it. I have to.
Okay.
I'd love to see your thoughts on it because you definitely.
Okay, go ahead. What was number one again?
The Apple Plus with PAC network.
With the Pac-12 network?
About it. Yeah. The positive about that is the Pac-12 network has multiple channels.
Yes.
Like out west here, they have actually a pretty wide production. I just wouldn't call it quality.
That synergy between Pac-12 and Apple, all that works for me. I get it. Pac-12 would, the Pac-12 network would be the production arm of Apple TV. Apple TV's got the money. They can work on the distribution over the years. It could work. All that is fine. The problem I have with it, and I've talked about it, I've given examples of it. Some people agree with me, some people don't. But my biggest problem with Apple TV being a part of this deal is that they're going to want all the tier 1 content. And just like what Jim Williams said, they want the entire They want the top of the cream content of the Pac-12. And I don't think the Pac-12 can afford that to happen. Not in 2023. That's my opinion. That is just, I don't think they can do that. I don't think you can put, because I don't believe Apple TV is going to sub-license these games. Okay, maybe one, maybe two. They want subscriptions. That's why, if they're doing this, that's what they want. So I can't fathom that being the case. I don't believe that all the Pac-12 schools will sign on the dotted line for that type of deal. That's the problem I'm having with it. Apple TV giving better distribution for non-revenue sports, events, making all that work, making it more profitable for the Pac-12 schools, better access to those games, the softball game, all that can all work. It's having Apple TV control all the top content. I can't get there.
I'm with you. I think it's feasible. I think this is the deal.
It could be.
I think this has actually been pushing everyone else out because, like, we don't get tier one, well, we're out of here.
Yeah.
I think this is it. I think this is what they're going to go with, but I do think it costs them schools. But
I do as well, and we're us two are not the only ones out there thinking that. But go ahead. Yeah. What was the second one?
Real quick with that on that to watch. Remember, I told you a little while back. Watch you brought this up, and I'm saying watch the Ivy League and how that goes. An Apple Plus with PAC network deal might not be good for all these PAC schools, but if say you're the Ivy League and you start to come up, that type of streaming and that type of coverage, that's a pretty good first step.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
if they come because that lawsuit does not go well, this is well suited for them to step in with Stanford and California with your 10 schools that can maintain PAC at Power 5. Anyway, I'd say this. I think that's the one. I think that's where they're going with. Second was consolidation and the value of it. I know you talk about that a lot, but some people kind of seem to think that it's kind of a foreign concept where by simply bringing schools into less conferences by consolidating, you're increasing the number of potential pairings that you have on any given week. And we've all seen those weeks during the year where there's a terrible pairing, low ratings across the board. Those are the nightmare of the networks. Yeah, they want to cut that up first and foremost.
Yeah,
consolidation. Go ahead.
No, consolidation leads to bigger brands playing bigger brands more often.
Yeah.
It leads to scarcity of the product, which makes it more valuable, right? There's a whole bunch of all that.
They can't really kick out because it's very problematic. So they have to add more, and the networks want this too, mind you.
Yep.
They want consolidation. They have more money for it, but they control it by only doling out so much at a time. Like, they're not just going to give you the full bag, because then the conferences are not going to expand further. They're not going to consolidate. So by not giving them the full bag right at the start, they're enticing them to continue expanding for it. People may not see it that way, and that's fine. That's kind of how I see it. And that's why, Fox and ESPN gave Big 12 a deal and then turn around to the PAC and say, no, because the PAC is out west where the lowest ratings are. They want to bring them east. Like, look at Oregon. They're the top ratings getter in the PAC. When they played Georgia, they were getting a 6+ rating, and all the ratings out west were 3+.
Yeah.
So that's saying you get Oregon in the Big Ten, you play Penn State, you play Ohio State, you play Michigan, you play Nebraska, you play Wisconsin, USC and UCLA still, and you're basically possibly doubling their value to a network. So if people think that there's not much, I'd say they're wrong. And that's pretty much the value consolidation. It just makes everyone work more to the network.
Yep. I completely agree. You're hitting a lot of great points.
And then finally, for Nitwit out there, fellow Big Tenner, the end game. If I could, I don't want to touch upon anything you don't want to touch upon. I know you got sources who maybe say don't talk about things, but are you okay with that?
The end game to where? To like in 2035 or?
I by no means have enough connection to know what year this would happen. just about what the end goal is, about where to get what will be the maximum.
I don't think there is a maximum. I don't think there is a maximum. I often say this: we're college football's peak around the corner, but my crystal ball cracked long time ago. In other words, if it's way too far out, we'll have fun speculating. But the economy changes, things change all the time. Realignment never sleeps. There could be fractures in these large conferences. I can already see it from what I've heard. So I have no idea.
A little tidbit, though, is people wonder how could the Big Ten, for instance, say, renegotiate a deal after they just signed one. Well, you could do it if you get enough realignment going to where you get to the point where you want to be, and all of a sudden now you pass your new Power 5 rules for expanding to divisions, for expanding your conference championship into a conference tournament.
Yeah.
The conference tournament creates new games that are not on any network agreement, so that automatically basically restarts renegotiation with all their network partners.
Yeah.
So when you do that, and the last evaluation of $20 million for a championship game, like I said to Nitwit, that was a BCS era price. Like you could look at that, and you could give that twice the value now. You could give that 5 times the value. You could say that's a $100 million game when it gives an automatic berth into the national tournament with a bye. For the Big Ten and the SEC, that's an automatic bye every single year. That's a $100 million game possibly. You have $50 million semifinal games. If you're going 16 tournament and you got your quarterfinal games, maybe $25 million a pop, you're at $250 million. Take that, you got a 25 per team conference. That's $10 million a team there.
That's one example, probably the largest example of why at peak around the corner we've coined the phrase the 2026 gold rush, because that's what's happening. Big Ten, the SEC is going to flex their muscle. We don't know how much and on exactly what points, but you could see a 12-team playoff, a 16-team playoff, limited to 4 automatic berths, right? Those conference championship games, the winner of the 4 Power 4 conferences, let's say we get to that point, they get that bye, and those conference championship games are worth so much more to these conferences. And that's just one example. We could talk all night about what could happen. Sure. That is why. What?
There is stuff out there.
There is stuff out. And that is why. And that is why I keep hitting the part that every school out there, regardless if people see it as just a minor step up or a lateral move with potential going up a little bit later, all these schools, if they have the option, are going to try to best position themselves for the future. That's why USC called the Big Ten, for all the reasons you're stating right now. That's why Oklahoma and Texas called the SEC, for all the reasons you're stating right now. It's why San Diego State is trying to climb over the wall and give concessions. SMU trying to climb over the wall and give concessions away, because we don't know what it's going to be like a couple years down the road. The better position you are, the better chance you can be part of that 2026 gold rush. The money is going to be gigantic, and it could quadruple, could double, triple, quadruple. We don't know.
And people wonder about the Big Ten commissioner and why they got him. Is he going to renegotiate? Yes, he is. He's going to renegotiate this. They have the new rules.
They got him for that 2026 gold rush to make sure there's other media companies involved, Fox. And it's why Washington and Oregon are going to keep swinging. It's the root of all what is going on. That's why we call it the 2026 gold rush. That is why Florida State is saying what they're saying, and they're going to be saying more here in a little bit. And that's why our episode 1 was the manifesto, and it talked about all of this. That's what is creating all this.
You know, let me point out one last thing, if you wouldn't mind, and then I'm going to leave it here. Especially with Big Ten, I know you're going to know about this, but all the comments made by officials, administrators, and such about how the NCAA March Madness basketball tournament got out of their hands and what it has done to devalue their own conference tournaments. I differ from you. I don't think they're going to expand the national tournament any more than it already is. Because what that'll do is just continue to devalue whatever they might want to make of their own conference tournaments, which they're not going to create until they get the new rules for multiple divisions. So I tend to think that their expansion is going to be in the conference realm, not in the national realm. I think 12 is more of a compromise with maybe some like the G5 schools and middle schools. But they really don't have to do too much compromise anymore with the P5 rules. But that's just my stance on that. Is I don't think we're going to get a lot more expansion in the national tournament when they can just do that in their own conference and spark renegotiations with the TV networks.
You are either on something or you're on to something, my friend. Either way.
Friday night, it might be both.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Always fun talking to you, man.
Thank you.
A great night.
Yeah. Greg, do you know about the article mentioned about ESPN paying 63%, Fox being out on expansion? You would have to let me know what article. Saul Goodman. I think what you're going to is the
Call from
Monavision.
Monavision. Can you just hold 1 second while I answer this question?
No problem.
I think what you're asking, Saul, is about the pro rata clause that the Big 12 has with their current media partner, ESPN. They don't have with Fox. And that ESPN, it has most of the football content in their media package, the more valuable part of the media content. All I can say is, and I've said this before, be very, very careful. If you're somebody who believes, be very careful if you're someone who believes that Fox is not going to make a Pac-12 team whole if they join the Big 12. I think the chances are very, very high that they would, that let's say in Arizona went to the Big 12, that they would get the full media share, that Fox would make it happen. Even though they're not contractually tied to it, I think they would make it happen. Okay, Monavision, what's going on, sir? The floor is yours, Mr. Buckeye.
All right, I'm going to do some rapid fire here, Greg.
Yep.
If the Pac-10 survives, and that's an if, I still lean towards Colorado, Arizona State joining the Big 12, and them adding San Diego State to round it out. I believe when that happens, Oregon and Washington will be cheap enough the Big Ten can't say no. But if that doesn't happen, the best deal for the Pac is Apple TV, getting all the Tier 1 rights. Do it for 3 years. The numbers I've seen floated around are between 35 to 40 million per school. You take that deal. Yes, you lose exposure, but you already know this is your last TV deal. So get that money and use that 3 years as a way to set yourself up for your next landing spot, almost auditioning for it. You got to do what's best for the conference, and right now that's the best deal you're getting. This idea of you're somehow going to pull out something close to you can't serve too many masters, and that's what the PAC is trying to do at this point with this TV deal, trying to piecemeal it between this partner, that partner. by the time it's all said and done, they're going to have 15 partners to try and satisfy everybody. That's just not going to work. I believe the Big Ten will continue to pursue Notre Dame until the ink is dry on that NBC contract.
Yeah.
I have not heard anything else regarding that negotiation, and I don't believe the Big Ten's going to stop pressing until there's ink on that contract.
Yep, I agree with everything. I just and of course I'm biased, guys, gals. I'm biased, right? I'm guilty. We have BTM and his associates has a relationship with a gentleman out in Arizona State. And I know none of you guys were listening to all my tweets and all this stuff about Arizona State hockey program. This guy nailed that whole stuff for years. And frankly, he's, for how much he could have told us, he's been nailing this story. And when he says that Arizona State, the Arizona schools, the state of Arizona, when it comes to Apple TV, they're way behind the other Pacific Coast states. Their consumers, their demographics, they're going to get buried. He said that 2 months ago. I hope someone remembers that letter that he put up. I have a hard time believing if that's the direction, if that's the signal coming out from George Kliavkoff and his people around him. I have a hard time believing they get all 10 presidents to sign up on that. That's where I lay. We'll see.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah, everybody's going to have to agree, but I think, and that's what I'm saying, I'm leaning to the fact that nobody's going to agree, 100% agree.
Yeah.
I do see the PAC collapsing and backfilling. But if it doesn't, the Apple TV deal is the best deal they're going to get. They would be willing to overpay to get PAC football.
Will Apple overpay, though? Will they overpay that much?
I think they would.
Huh?
Well, they overpaid for MLS. They overpaid for Major League Soccer.
Who's producing those MLS soccer games? I don't even know who's producing those games. Is it the regional?
I don't know either, because like most Americans, I don't watch soccer. And, I've been to a Columbus Crew game.
Yeah.
The only time I watch soccer is if it's a national, the national team or the women's team. I don't watch soccer. And I've been to Crew Stadium and not seen it sold out several times.
So Craig says MLS is producing them. So within that contract, some of that money that Apple TV is getting to replenish MLS for producing them. I don't know. I think, if we wake up a month from now and there's an Apple TV, there's a deal done with the Pac-12, I think we should pause when we first see that deal and make sure what type of money it really is. Because again,
they're going to end up using the Pac. The Pac-12 is going to have to pay to produce their own games. I'm certain on that.
So
it's not beyond the realm of possibility that Apple would be willing to pay $350 to $400 million to secure the PAC right. I mean, Apple TV is trying to get themselves set into the streaming market.
Yeah.
So it's not beyond the reason. I mean, Amazon paid $1 billion for a Lord of the Rings show that nobody watched. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility of the PAC getting overpaid by Apple. So I do think that would be the best. That's probably the best deal they're going to get in terms of money, in terms of actually being able to compete with the big. They're not going to be able to compete with the Big Ten and SEC, but be able to compete with the Big 12 and the ACC. Sign it as a 3-year deal. Apple can use it as an audition for live sports on their service. The other PAC teams can use it as an audition to try and find landing spots in the Big 10, Big 12, whoever will have them. Just one more point before I go, Greg. I wanted to talk a little bit about what Immaculate touched on with tournaments, championship tournaments in college football for the conferences.
Yeah.
At some point, how many games are these kids expected to play? I don't think they would. We're basically going to a 20-game season at that point with conference championships. I mean,
I think, for example, I think if you go to a 20-team, 5 teams in a pod, your semifinal game, right, the winner of each pod, your semifinal game is your 10th conference game. The others,
and then everybody else, you would just do a ranked seeding.
Yeah, exactly. And that would be their 10th conference game. And you would know if that would be a home or away game even before the season started. Those home and away games would be rotated across those 4 pods. So there's a way to do that without increasing the games. At the playoff games,
that would have to be the way it is.
Yeah. Well, this has been talked about. I talked about this on Twitter about 3 or 4 years ago. God, I keep forgetting the guy's name. The old Michigan State athletic director, Hollis. Mike or Mark Hollis used to be Jim Delaney's right-hand man. He talked about this idea years ago. Jim Harbaugh has brought this up. In fact, during the pandemic, when that was supposed to happen, when we had that, when everybody was supposed to play another weekend besides the championship game, but a lot of teams couldn't do it anyways. That idea was just basically pickpocketed from the ideas that they had years ago about having a extra conference game, semifinal weekend, have your conference in pods. So that's the way, I think that's the way it's probably going to develop if these conferences grow to 20 schools, and I think they will. I just think they will. I don't see how they can't. There's too much incentive.
I agree.
There's too much incentive right now economically. You get more power as a conference. You remember, these conferences are making more and more of their own decisions. The Supreme Court has basically given us hints that they're okay with the conferences making decisions versus the NCAA. So I just think these conferences are incentivized to go bigger. And then the real clue to this, one of the big clues to this, is we talked about it peek around the corner. I was absolutely obsessed with this issue about how the new playoffs in 2024, 2025, how they were going to distribute the money. Were they going to do it by giving out a certain amount of money to each conference, or were they going to go by team? If they did it by school, the same amount to each school, not counting performance money, like a flat fee to each school, then that was going to be an incentive to expand bigger. And sure enough, they ruled for these conferences to expand bigger, and sure enough, that's the decision they made. We are in the very last year of this expanded playoff. We're in the very last year of the 4-team invitational playoff. The money, how it's been distributed for all these years is Power Conference A gets $79 million, something like that. Power Conference B gets 70-some million. Power Conference C. All these Power 5 conferences, they get the same amount of money distributed to them. It doesn't depend on how many schools they have. So the larger schools, the larger conferences that have more schools, they actually have less money to dole out to their schools. So here you got SEC going to 16. You got the Big Ten going to 16 in 2024. So they did flex their muscle. They made sure that, we're not doing it that way no more. Each Power 5 program is going to get a set amount of money given to them. Regardless, it isn't going to be given out per conference. It's per school. And that is another greasing of the skids for larger conferences. We talked about the example of the Pac-12 can use that to try to grease the skids to get a San Diego State over the wall, because San Diego State, they become a Power 5 school. They're going to get that Power 5 money, and they can give that as a concession, that playoff money, and give it to the other Pac-12 schools to make them whole. That's just one way of going about it. A lot of incentives for larger and larger conferences. Someday that might change, but right now, I don't see it.
Well, not only that, Greg, but you're going to have the participation incentive too, which is why in 2026 you're going to see an end to automatic qualifiers.
I don't know about that.
I don't see the bigger SEC willing to give it up.
You might be right. I don't think it's going to be 6 anymore, but I don't quite see it at 0 either. And the reason I say that is because these conferences, those conference championship games, they want those numbers to be juiced. They want they want their media partner to be able to sell advertising dollars. That money is a money grab for these conferences. And if you have value to those conference championship games, you can make more money out of those conference championship games. So I'm looking at a Power 4, possible Power 4 conferences. We'll see what happens with the Pac-12, with 4 automatic berths just reserved for those power conferences, and then having 8 or 12 at large if they go to 16 teams. That's how I see it. But
I disagree, simply because I think the media partners who are paying for the playoffs would much rather have a brand school, let's say a 3rd-ranked Penn State in the playoff, over a 16th-ranked Pac-12 champion. Let's just say the Pac survives and some champion ends up winning at 8-4 and is ranked 17th or something like that because it's a good season. How are those partners going to feel about, say, an Oregon State taking a spot of a Penn State?
I don't know. Sometimes the David and Goliath matchup is interesting. I don't know. We'll see.
Did you watch a national championship, Greg?
No. I was busy. It had nothing to do with Connecticut and San Diego State.
No. I'm talking about the football national championship.
I did a live show on it. I did a double. Didn't I? Yeah, I did a live show on it.
Sometimes David and Goliath doesn't work out.
Oh, sure it doesn't.
Most times David
sure
and Goliath
it doesn't.
doesn't.
Sure it
work
doesn't.
out.
But I like David and Goliath matchups from once in a while. I love the excitement around that until the end of the first quarter. So.
Well, we'll have to agree to disagree. Greg.
Well,
will be interesting.
the Golden Gophers are David. So what can I say, right? So.
I wouldn't go so far as to even call him David.
All right. Okay.
Maybe the lamb of David.
Get yourself ready. That's all I got to say, Buckeyes. Get yourself ready.
Hey, do me one favor, Greg.
Yes.
Could you give them a few CNDs in the chat? People need to. It's Friday night. Let's get it going.
Some what?
CNDs. Say the magic words.
Oh, Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger.
All right, take it easy, Greg.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate the phone call.
Call from
Lewis.
Lewis is in the house. What's going on, sir? Lewis, I lost Lewis. Call again, Lewis. I lost you.
Call from
Lewis.
Lewis, the floor is yours. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened.
It's okay. Good evening, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Good. I'm in Big Ten country today, although I'd much rather not be here.
Where are you?
Michigan.
Oh, Michigan.
It's cold.
Yeah.
It goes 82 degrees in Pittsburgh. It's 45 up here. So
Oh, wow. It's snowing in Minnesota right now, but go ahead.
I know. Don't you love it? So, Jim Williams, I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
But his post makes no sense because I don't see how Apple's taking tier 1 and Amazon's still doing a game. I would think Amazon would want that first pick unless Apple's sublicensing to Amazon, but that doesn't seem to make any sense. So I'm trying to figure that out. And the linear, they have no understanding of it. I thought that was correct, and I thought all in all it was a good piece, a good tweet.
Yeah.
But this conference is just an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can say. And it's been so quiet. I mean, Kliavkoff has not gone out and defended himself.
Yeah.
He's not defended the conference for months. I think that's the wrong decision. You need to get out and create a narrative. And the presidents have been largely very quiet about it. And in the meantime, it just seems to be dying on the vine. So with all that said, they still might survive it, but certainly looking forward to the day when they come out from behind the curtain. It's like the Wizard of Oz here. They come from behind the curtain, show the cards. We've been waiting for months and months to see what the cards are.
Yeah.
And let's move on. But it's just an absolute dumpster fire. Maybe they can't show the cards, and perhaps Kliavkoff has not come up for public comment and for questions because of legal issues. Maybe he's concerned he will get questions about the Comcast situation and doesn't want to answer those. And that's a bad optic as well. So in any event, it's not a good day because you hate to see this happening in college athletics, but let's hope it's over soon. And Big 12 offers a great landing spot for some schools if they wish to take it. We'll see what they do. But a great show. I'll get back to listening to it and have a good weekend.
Thank you, Lewis. Appreciate your call. Always. Love your calls. Thank you, sir. Great call. Opie, thank you so much once again for your absolutely incredible generous donation. Hold on one second.
Call from
Steve.
Sir, can you just hold on for 1 second?
Yes.
Okay, I got a super chat here. Opie, thank you so much. I cannot see a media company or streaming service doing a 3-year contract with the PAC. As a business, you may lose on the first contract to get your foot in the door, but you're looking to renew and make a profit on the latter. I agree. I agree in the Arizona State Money Perch guy in his last letter, he kept saying 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. So I think he's gotten some intel that Arizona, it's 5 years that they're discussing. Maybe he's wrong, but he brought it up so many times. 3 years is, for me, Apple wouldn't agree with that, in my opinion. So I agree with you, Opie. And again, if Apple TV does this, it's because they want to build their subscription base, and they're not going to give up those top games. And can Oregon and Washington really want to have their game, Washington versus Oregon, on Apple TV? Do they want to have the Utah Utes, who are, let's say they're 9-0 and they're ready to possibly win the Pac-12 championship for the third time in 4 years, and they're playing Arizona State, who's having an upstart year, and that game's on Apple TV? I just don't see it happening. But thank you, Opie. I appreciate you super chat once again. You're helping us keep the lights on I appreciate it, good friend. Okay, sir, is it Steve?
Yes.
Steve, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Hey, I just want to preface a few things before we have our conversation. I'm probably one of the older folks that watches your show, been around a while. The other thing I want to say is I'm one of the last guys to see the Pac-10 or Pac-12 fold or fail or break up. I grew up in the Midwest, and what you did on January 1st at 5 o'clock every day was you watched the Rose Bowl, and I got great memories of watching a lot of Pac teams
Yes, sir.
play in the Rose Bowl.
Yes, sir.
The other thing is, as I said, with my age, I had the fortune or sometimes misfortune of negotiating big money deals, and I'll just leave it at that. Okay, not in the media, but
Okay.
big money deals.
Got it.
Okay, your product is worth what the market will bear and what people will pay for it. Simple as that. Okay, simple. It's simple. Okay. With that being said, and it doesn't get a lot of conversation, is you have to look, and I'm talking the Power Five. Well, I'll even throw in the AAC a couple of seasons when Cincinnati was having their success they had.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just concentrate on the Power Five. You have to look at these media companies know a lot more than any of us know, and I could only read what I read and see what I see. But the Pac-12, Pac-10, whatever we want to refer to it as, has not great TV numbers, period. Okay?
Yes, sir.
It doesn't take much research. Doesn't take much research for that to be very glaring.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm not dissing the Pac.
No,
Okay?
I understand what you're
Just
saying. Yeah.
Facts are facts. Okay? They have a standalone conference championship game on Friday nights. Standalone. I know Saturdays at 3:30 and 7:30 are better than Friday at 8:30 Eastern. I get that part.
Yes, sir.
But their numbers aren't good. They aren't good, Greg.
Yeah.
People have to come to that realization. These
Yeah.
these media companies have all this information, 10 times the information I'm talking about. And with everything going on in the economy, the Pac-12 is worth what the Pac-12 is worth to these media companies. So everybody quit they're going to get 35 to 40 million. If they were going to get 35 to 40 million, I negotiated, like I said, a lot of big contracts. If they were going to get 35 to 40 million, Greg, it would be done. If they were going to get 30 million, if they had that offer on the table, it would be done. I don't care if it was 100% streaming, it would probably be done. Okay? If they were at 30 million. If they were at 27 million with a 30/70 linear streaming, it would probably be done. Okay? The Pac-12 leadership, and I'm not talking George alone, they can all take, I don't want to use the word blame, but they can all sit around and they all better look at themselves and they all better decide what we're going to do real fast. Because now time is of the essence.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, and buts about it.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence. I would get nervous in meetings when they went past the time that we want to negotiate and things weren't done.
Yeah.
I know that the other side of the desk was getting nervous when things went past the time we thought we'd have an agreement. This has been far too long. And I'll leave you with this, Greg, and if you could comment. You've heard the phrase, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer?
Yes, sir.
Well, Brett Yormark knows that a lot better than George Kliavkoff.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve, don't leave yet. Fantastic phone call. Please call again. You're absolutely correct. You know,
I don't want to sound arrogant,
No.
Greg, but I've been there.
No.
I've done it.
but you're, we talk
It's
about,
stressful.
you talk about the Pac-12 numbers, the eyeballs, right? People keep talking about how the Pac-12 doesn't get a lot of eyeballs on their product because they're out in the Pacific Coast. The games are too late. The rest of the country doesn't want to see the games, or they can't see the games. The real problem, that all is part of it. But the real problem, and we say it here at Peek Around the Corner constantly, is the real problem with the Pac-12 not having the eyeballs on their content is Pac-12 country does not watch
Absolutely.
Pac-12 football.
Absolutely.
They don't.
Absolutely.
They don't. Look
Nope.
at the numbers coming out of those markets. They don't.
Yep.
A Big Ten watches Big Ten football. SEC watches SEC football. You can have 2, 3, and 7 teams and still register 800,000 views on ESPN2 because that country watches their country, that region of the country's football.
Absolutely.
Pac-12 doesn't do that. So what I think what the networks have figured out is USC, UCLA, a lot more valuable in the Big Ten than in the Pac-12. Because
Absolutely.
because a Buckeye fan is going to watch USC play Illinois way more than a Buckeye fan is going to watch USC versus Oregon State. That's just the truth. So now these networks, and I'm hint, wink, wink, nod, Fox Sports, they're also looking at, geez, you know what? State of Arizona, probably a little bit more valuable if they're playing some of those central time zone schools. You know?
Absolutely.
So the idea, you know, we talk about consolidation, change in sports, change in football. The idea that a one region conference can survive in this day and age, and if you're outside the SEC, of course, it just doesn't work anymore, especially in the Pacific Coast. So, Steve, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. Go ahead. Great phone call. Go ahead.
I just look at the numbers, and I mean, I've got them stored away on my iPad, whatever you want. You know, I got them stored away. Then I go back and look at it, and I'm going, are you kidding me? What USC and Utah did in a standalone game on a Friday night in the first Friday of December? That's all they did.
Yeah.
And, Greg, it came on at what? 8 o'clock Eastern?
Yeah.
Where you're still going to get some of the folks in the Eastern, Central, and Mountain time zones.
And if you flipped it,
10:30 start,
and you flipped it, and let's say Utah joins the Big Ten, and it's Utah versus USC, same channel, same time, it's going to get more views because Big Ten
get more views.
Yeah. So and the networks have got it figured out, and so does Steve. He's got it figured out.
Well, one other thing I just want to leave you with is both of my sons went to the University of Cincinnati. I grew up in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And now I split my time between the Midwest and Florida. I'm at that age where that Florida is pretty nice for 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it's been a long time coming for Cincinnati, and UCF for that matter.
Yes.
And I'm waiting to see what else the Big 12 does.
Yeah.
Because jumping on the 4 teams they jumped on, that's probably the 4 best they could get, in hindsight, and also in foresight, it is. So I want to see where they go from here. And again, I'm not dissing the Pac-12 because I've got too many memories of John McKay and John Robinson and Don James. I'm throwing names that you still remember, obviously, most likely. Yeah. But those are the things I remember. And it's just sad to see what is going on. It's sad.
Yeah, it is. It is sad for us old timers, no question about it.
Yep. Hey, thanks for your time. I'll let somebody else get on.
Thanks.
There. Appreciate your show.
Thank you. Call again, Steve. Appreciate it.
All right.
USC and Cincinnati have 99% of their season tickets sold. Great job. We talked about this at Peek Around the Corner before when the Big 12 was looking to expand. Fox Sports wanted UCF. ESPN wanted Cincinnati. They wanted them. They wanted them bad. Fox wanted UCF. ESPN wanted Cincinnati. And then, of course, BYU brought a lot of value. And then Houston was the 4th team that came in. I wish I had a YouTube channel at that point in time because that's what we were saying at the Twitter account. But anyways, I think we're going to call it a night. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 16 minutes. I want to thank everybody for joining us in this live show. More drama in the Pac-12 as there's a wrongful termination complaint lawsuit going on now. It's a crazy time in the Pac-12. Hopefully we get a resolution of this Pac-12 saga sooner rather than later. I think we're going to get it sooner rather than later. As you all know, Peek Around the Corner's position on this. We talked about the college football rule changes. I don't have a strong take either way on that stuff. I'm very, having the clock run after first downs. I mean, basically all of you guys are going to start watching the pace of a Golden Gopher game. Because the Golden Gophers, besides the academy schools, we've been running the ball the most of all the Power 5 programs. The clock ticks, our games are shorter. Your games are now going to turn into Golden Gopher games. How do you like that? Thanks for coming on in. If you're new to the channel, before you leave, please subscribe to our channel to get notified of the next live show and episode. And also go to our merchandise store. Pick out your Cloak and Dagger mug. Do it. Look at this beautiful mug. Look at that. Cloak and Dagger. A lot of Cloak and Dagger continues to go on in the college football world. And please hit that like button if you like our content tonight. It helps us with YouTube at the algorithm so very much. It gets us more exposure. That's what the Pac-12 schools are looking for, more exposure. So until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other.